Hey everyone, this is Bisam from Gaza. We're still alive and we wish you a Merry Christmas in the Christmas Eve. Wish you a Merry Christmas despite the churches of Gaza are closed, full of displaced people and surrounded with snipers. We wish you a Merry Christmas despite the children, women, men, Christians and Muslims of Gaza are murdered and are under genocide. We wish you a Merry Christmas despite that we cannot exchange gifts or spend our holidays in our homes because they are completely destroyed. And Merry Christmas despite there are hundreds of killed, composed bodies in the north of Gaza Strip, in the streets. At least 137 of them are field executed by the Israeli soldiers in front of their children. Merry Christmas, but pray for Gaza.
Hey, this is Bisan and it's the day 80 of genocide. 80 days of killing and bombing. So, a new thing happened today. People in Khan Yunis, in the west of Khan Yunis, were told to evacuate. I mean, the east of Khan Yunis is evacuated, is invaded, is destroyed. People in the north of Gaza Strip moved to Khan Yunis. In the east of Khan Yunis moved to Khan Yunis also. I mean, the west of Khan Yunis. And now, 2 blocks were warned to evacuate. Where? To Rafah. Now, the area of Gaza Strip is 360 square kilometers. What remains for us is 151 square kilometers. Rafah. Rafah is not enough. There's no spaces in Rafah. We cannot just flee there. There's no spaces. We are in the streets. There is no spaces for people in Rafah. 2 million people. I mean, these blocks contain schools. These schools, 13 schools and hospitals. These squares are around the hospital of Nasser, the last and the largest functioning hospital in South and in Gaza Strip in general. Where are people going to go? We're talking about more than 1 million people in Rafah. Yani, just divide it and figure out how many centimeters do each of us have as Gazans in Rafah. There's no places in Rafah. Gaza is really small. Just tell us where to go. You keep bombing every single place, evacuating people from here to here, from here to here, from here to there. Where to go? There's no places. You're not telling us to go to any safe place. Tell people where to go. They are just dying. So as you know, the evacuation from the places, different places in Gaza Strip started in the 7th of October. Yes, people started to be warned to evacuate in the 7th, in the 8th of October. We're talking about the extreme north of the Gaza Strip. Then Gaza City between the 12th to the 13th of October until now. So, 2 million people are displaced. That means that the middle area, Khan Yunis and Rafah, are really crowded, very crowded. And because of this, people are dying in massive numbers. Yesterday, some buildings were bombed in Al-Maghazi refugee camp. It's a massacre, residential civilians buildings. And 80 people were killed. A lot are missed and hundreds of injuries. Can you imagine that someone is beaten, is forced to displace, is afraid, is running away from killing and bombing, holding their children, and then are bombed while they are sheltering dozens in the same room, holding their beloved ones in a crowded refugee camp from the 1948 until now. Do you know that this massacre that resulted in more than 80 people to be killed yesterday in Al-Maghazi, 80% of these people or 90% of these people are displaced from Beit Hanun? Do you know that they lost everything and then they survived the 79 days and then they were killed at the night of the 79, at the night of the Christmas Eve. They were killed, afraid, sheltering in someone's home, maybe hungry and maybe thirsty, in the dark, and they were not told that they need to be evacuated. And even if they were told, I mean, where to go? Can you imagine having 5 kids, no mattress, no blankets, it's cold, it's rainy, and then you've been told to go out? Where to go? No places, right? This is Al-Maghazi massacre. Just a new massacre in the Christmas Eve.
I am in the Al-Maghazi refugee camp, and actually I am standing on the rubble of a 5-floor home that was completely destroyed by the Israeli strikes on the Al-Maghazi refugee camp overnight. Here we have a number of people that are trying to evacuate the bodies of those who were still under the rubble, and the rescue teams and civil forces did not manage to evacuate them. What you are seeing here is the bodies of 2 children. One of them is 10 years old, the other one is 8 years old. They are from Al-Yazji family, and actually these children, these 2 girls evacuated from their homes in northern Gaza and came here to take shelter in middle Gaza, because this place was told by the IDF that it is a safe place, and actually this is where the Palestinians should be heading for their safety. The people, they want to take some blankets in order to cover the bodies of the 2 girls. So yes, they managed to evacuate the 2 girls. We want also to show you the amount of destruction here in Al-Maghazi refugee camp. As you can see, we're talking about at least 10 homes that were either partly or completely damaged in the series of Israeli strikes that targeted the Al-Maghazi refugee camp, where Palestinian medical sources talked about more than 80 people killed. And we are actually witnessing the evacuation of the bodies of more people that were killed in this Israeli strike box. They are still under the rubble. noor.harazeen, CGTN, Gaza.
I'm currently standing on the rubble of the house or the residential area that has been targeted yesterday night in Al-Maghazi refugee camp. In here, at least five family members are stuck, including a 2-month-old baby. And people here are trying to remove other people from under the rubble. All I smell is blood and death. A whole residential area has been targeted, and this is not the only house in the area that has been targeted. It was a very tough night on people in Al-Maghazi and Burej and the middle area. Here is a 3-story building that has been flattened to the floor. At least 5 of the same family member, at least 5 from the same family are in here under the rubble, and no one can rescue them. In this house, there has been also injuries, and in this house too, more injuries and killings have been reported. People are trying their best to remove others from under the rubble, trapped under the rubble for at least 10 hours so far.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. December the 24th, live from Gaza. Gaza is not alone. With your support, after weeks of us sending a request to help the Civil Defense Department here in Khan Yunis to continue to function to rescue people from under the rubble after strikes by the IDF. Alhamdulillah, the free-loving people around the world have donated tens of thousands of shekels to not only cover their operating expenses for the next few weeks, their spare parts, the lubrication, etc. In addition to that, we are constructing a solar power station so that they can continue to operate their parts with this amount. Here we talk to Brother Yamin, who is the head of the Civil Defense Department. We thank him for his service and he has something to say. تفضل أستاذ يامن.
نشكر الأخوة المتبرعين على هذا المبلغ الكريم الذي قدموه، والله نسأل أن يكون ذلك في ميزان حسناتهم والله نسأل أن يكون ذلك في ميزان حسناتهم، كما ندعو الله عز وجل أن يحفظهم ويحفظ أبنائهم وأهليهم على ما قدموه لنا في المحافظة كدفاع مدني لتسهيل مهامنا. فالكل يعلم أن أغلب سيارات الدفاع المدني متهالكة وقد تم استهدافها خلال الحرب، خصوصا مركبة الإسعاف الموجودة لدينا تم استهدافها. نتمنى منكم مساعدتنا بتوفير مركبة إسعاف خصوصا للطواقم الخاصة في الدفاع المدني، وبارك الله فيكم وجزاكم الله خيرا. تمام؟
اخر شيء بدي احكي لكم اياه انه الحرب الاعلاميه جدا مهمه، الحرب الاعلاميه اهم من الحرب العسكريه بكثير. المنتصر في الحرب الاعلاميه هو منتصر في الحرب فعليا. جد اللي حيكسب الراي العام اللي هو حينتصر في الحرب الاعلاميه وفي التاثير الاعلامي هو اللي حيكون كسبان في الحرب، هو حيكون له الكلمه الاخيره. عشان هيك احنا بنقول لكم ما توقفوا نشر، عشان هيك بنقول لكم ضلكم غطوا الاحداث، عشان هيك ضلكم شاركوا البوستات اللي احنا بننزلها، ضلكم احكوا عن غزه بستوريات بذات بتغريدات اي حاجه. لان فعلا الحرب الاعلاميه جدا مهمه جدا جدا والله، وما تستقلوا اي عمل. والله جد الله يعطيكم الف عافيه، والله عارفين ان انتم مش مقصرين ابدا، الله يجزيكم كل خير عليكم. لكن فعليا عارفينكم تعبتوا بس كملوا معنا. اذا احنا مكملين سامي ولكن منور قاعد بدور ستوري. المهم فالله يعطيكم الف عافيه والله يجزيكم عنا كل خير. معلش خلينا نتحمل بعض او مش تحملوا، ايه غصب عنكم تنشروا، ايش مالكم؟ انشروا عنا، الله يسعدكم وصباح الخير. دعوات.
يعني منذ ساعات منتصف الليل والاحتلال الإسرائيلي يكثف من غاراته العنيفة على محافظة خان يونس وبالتحديد منطقة وسط مدينة خان يونس، يعني غارات عنيفة جدا وأحزمة نارية على استهداف كما تسمعون في الخلفية استهدافات وقصف عنيف وأيضا غارات من المدفعية الإسرائيلية بشكل مكثف جدا على محافظة خان يونس. الأوضاع الآن في خان يونس مع ساعات الفجر يعني اشتباكات عنيفة بين الفصائل الفلسطينية وبين قوات الاحتلال في منطقة وسط مدينة خان يونس.
احكي لي عن طفولتك.
حرب.
اجي اساعدك
يا لوسي، سامحيني يا لوسي، مش قادر اطعميك اقسم بربي، لاني انا مش ماكل انا اصلا.
Town of Bethlehem. Oh, little town of Bethlehem. Oh, little town of Bethlehem, where Christmas is cancelled. I'm standing meters away from where Jesus Christ is thought to have been born. And usually this square is filled with lights and people and a huge Christmas tree. But this year, church leaders across the Holy Land have cancelled festivities as Palestinians mourn their brothers and sisters being killed by the thousands in Gaza and all across occupied Palestine. So as you celebrate in your warm homes surrounded by your family, remember,
if Jesus were to be born today, he would be born under the rubble.
أنا اسمي يوسف من سكان هذه المنطقة. الساعة تقريبا 10 ونص صارت أكثر من دبة، يمكن يا 3 يا دبتين ورا بعض، وكل القزاز اللي في المنطقة تضرروا، وكتير من الناس شردوا كلهم صاروا يجروا على القصف، وما كانش يعني هذه دار ايتام، يعني ما فيش ولا اي خطر. وطلع مخبز الناس كانوا يشتري فيه خبز، يعني تقريبا هذا بس مخبزين كان في كل دير البلح فاتح، هذا منهم لانه كانت توصلوا مساعدات. ما كانش في ولا اي اشي ممكن خطر او يضرر عليهم، بس هيك هم على مزاجهم قصفوها. تقريبا على الساعة 10 في الليل كلهم صاروا يطلعوا يشردوا، احنا قزازنا تكسر، قزاز بيتنا، اخواني الاطفال قعدوا يعيطوا وخافوا، وقعدنا نكلم دار سيدي ونقولهم اللي صار. ويعني الحين هلا لو بدهم يعملوا كل غزة دور ايتام مش راح تكفي، لانه غزة كلها اللي فقد كل عيلته، يعني مش عارف ايش اقول والله. يعني الحين عنا احنا في غزة الشهيد لما يموت بقدرش يشفع على 70 من أهله، لأنه 70 كلهم بيكونوا شهداء. كانوا مخليين الحمد لله، ما كانش فيه ولا أي خطر الحمد لله، فيش إصابات ولا إشي ولا شهداء ولا أي إشي الحمد لله. الله خير حافظ وهو أرحم الراحمين.
طيب والعدو إيش بيعمل فينا بدون أي سابق إنذار وإحنا أبرياء؟
نعرف هو بيستهدف المواطنين الأبرياء، بيستهدف المدنيين، لأنه مش قادر يستهدف العناصر الكبار من القسام، وبطلع حرارته هيك فينا، بعصب علينا هيك، بطلع غله فينا. بس احنا الحمد لله راضيين الحمد لله، هينا عايشين، بناكل أحلى أكل وبنشرب أحلى شرب.
طيب إيش رسالتك للعالم؟
إنه يشوفوا إيش بصير في غزة ويساعدونا بس.
كيف حالك يا حلوة؟ ايش اخبارك؟ ايش بتساوي؟ ايه؟ ايش بتعملي قاعدة؟ ترسمي؟ ايش هذه الرسمة؟ بيت؟ وين ساكنة انتي؟ لا انت وين ساكنين بالضبط؟
غزة شرق نتسرية.
بيتكم قصف ولا ضايق؟
انقصف كله.
شوف الرسمة، شوف ورجيني اياها. والله حلوة. يعطيك العافية حبيبتي.
ايش بدنا نقول عنها؟
ايش اسمك؟
زكية.
ايه؟
زكية.
زكية، احنا زكية.
ايش بدنا نقول؟ بعوض الله.
بعوض.
خلص.
بعوض الله.
ان شاء الله الله بعوض.
ان شاء الله يا حبيبي ان شاء الله.
وقت ايش بدها تخلص الحرب؟
ان شاء الله بتخلص.
شد راسك على التراب. شد حسن، شد يا شد.
This is major breaking news from Gaza. It's 10:45 a.m. Palestine time, December 25th, Christmas Day. A letter from Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas in Gaza. This came in 10 minutes ago via Resistance News Network on Telegram. The Al-Qassam brigades, that's Hamas's military wing, are engaged in a fierce, violent, and unprecedented battle against the Israeli occupation forces, and the occupation army has suffered heavy losses in lives and equipment. During the ground war, the Al-Qassam brigades targeted no less than 5,000 soldiers and officers, killing a third of them. This is new information. We haven't gotten a number yet like this because the Israeli occupation forces have been suppressing the number of deaths. Their state censor has not been able to fully suppress it. That's why the numbers of injuries started increasing coming out of the hospitals, because one of the Israeli publications, I can't remember which one, but they went to press after suppressing it for months. So we knew the death toll was really high, but this is Yahya Sinwar saying this. This is a big deal. So during the ground war, the Al-Qassam brigades targeted no less than 5,000 soldiers and officers, killing a third of them. Another third suffered serious injuries, and the remaining third sustained permanent disabilities. As for military vehicles, 750 of them were destroyed, either completely or partially. The Al-Qassam brigades have shattered the occupation army, and they are continuing on their path to further break it, asserting that they will not submit to the occupation's conditions.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu dismissed false media speculation that there would be a halt to fighting. He says that the Gaza war, the genocide, is far from over. These were his words. "We are not stopping, we are continuing to fight, and we will be intensifying the fighting in the coming days. And the fighting will take long, and it is not close to concluding." And then an Israeli military official told the Wall Street Journal that the army's fight to take Gaza's Khan Yunis city could take months. 23 hospitals in Gaza are now completely out of service, and the entire health sector is now in the final stage of collapse. Over 9,000 Palestinians have died because of an inability to provide them treatment, and it is likely that number will increase as health facilities continue to go out of service. The medical aid that is arriving only covers about 2% of the health sector's needs. In the past 24 hours, over 250 Palestinians have been martyred by the IOF, and over 500 have been wounded. And that's not counting the people who are still stuck underneath the rubble. In the past hours, there have been non-stop attacks on Jabalia, which is in northern Gaza, and these attacks are targeting small local businesses. We have seen a consistent pattern of homes being destroyed, and now they are attacking more and more businesses as well. Once again, these are physical and mental elements that constitute a genocide. They are completing every single one of them. Khalil al-Degran, a spokesman from Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital, has also spoken to Al Jazeera about the situation at the health facility following Israeli air attacks on central Gaza, which also targeted the Maghazi and Buraij refugee camps overnight. More than 35 Palestinians have been illegally detained overnight in the occupied West Bank by the IOF. That puts the total at 4,730 Palestinians that have been illegally detained since October 7th. Israeli forces demolished an agricultural facility near Salfit in the north of the occupied West Bank. An army bulldozer demolished the facility, which was still under construction in the town of Der Balut, west of Salfit. According to local sources, a resident owned the facility and was targeted under the pretext of construction without a permit. And in Yatta, the Israeli army ordered the community of Abu Shaban to stop working on building a school for children. It is incredibly clear what they're doing in the occupied West Bank. They are demolishing everything, and they're ensuring the Palestinians cannot build anything new. Another one of the towns that was hit today, on December 25th, Christmas Day, was Bethlehem. The IOF began with attacking Jenin refugee camp, illegally detaining a multitude of Palestinians, and continuing to raid several other towns. So dozens and dozens of kidnappings, and the shooting in the neck of a 17-year-old boy. And among those towns was Bethlehem. Bethlehem is considered to be the birthplace of Jesus. This is 100% intentional that they are doing this. The IOF is making a point. Keep your eyes on everything. Western media is trying to push the idea that this is somehow going to be over soon. But Netanyahu himself made it incredibly clear that it won't be. And the Israeli military has made it clear that in the next few days they will be intensifying and increasing attacks in Gaza. Please keep sharing information. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
These are the Palestine updates for the day. On Christmas Day, Israeli forces stormed and raided the city Bethlehem, which is where Jesus was born. The raids didn't just happen in Bethlehem, they happened across the occupied West Bank. The day before Christmas, Israeli forces targeted a 600-year-old monastery in the south of Lebanon. Last night on Christmas Eve, there was a huge massacre. They sent airstrikes to a refugee camp in Maghazi in the central part of Gaza, and they murdered a lot of people. Most of the people who died from this airstrike were women and children, and unfortunately all of the routes for ambulances to be able to go and enter into that area were bombed as well. As a result of the Maghazi massacre, 7 family names are completely gone. Every single person from 7 different family names were massacred. On Christmas Day, in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, around 800,000 people do not have access to any kind of health care. Southern Gaza, the hospitals are now at 350% capacity. Around 900,000 children in shelters are at risk of dehydration and starvation. Please make sure to like, share, and comment. I'll be back tomorrow with more updates.
Talk about a damn land grab. 2 Palestinian villages that were forcibly abandoned because of increased Israeli settler violence has now been confiscated by the IDF and declared closed military zones. IDF stole Palestinian land on the pretense that it's to prevent friction between Palestinians and settlers. Instead of removing the settlements that are illegal by international law, the IDF is going to take away more Palestinian land instead.
They are demolishing Palestinian villages, beating up Palestinian farmers, stealing their olives. They are trying to open a third front, an east front, against the Palestinians. Why? The Palestinian West Bank. Why? Because they want this without any Palestinian. They want the land without Palestinians.
Pretty shocking just how violent these settlers are.
All 150 residents of Zanuta fled their homes in November.
هذه السيارة المستوطنين قاموا بتحطيمه بالهراوات والمري ملهاش مري. شايف المري كيف مكسرات كسروها ما بنقدر نستعملها الا تم يتم اصلاح. المستوطنين هددونا وضربونا وبهدلونا. انا فتحوني وحطوا البارودي في راسي هان الام 16 وشايف انه قالوا خلص احنا بدنا نروح بدك تموت انت اللي بتموت لحالك. طلعنا عليهم لنا ما طلعنا.
So how do we stop this? The world is always telling Israel to stop settlement expansion. European powers tell Israel to stop in 2021. This July, UK, Canada, Australia urge Israel to stop settlement expansion. The truth is, this doesn't matter. Until Israel is sanctioned to retreat to the 1967 borders, this will continue to go on. Just 3 years ago, Netanyahu warned that Israel will not be able to withstand international sanctions if those imposed on her demand it withdraw to the 1967 borders. Last time Israel was threatened with sanctions was in 1956, and President Eisenhower forced Israel to withdraw from Sinai. Unless there's major reform, the United States is too far gone to impose sanctions on Israel. Considering the EU won't come to a unanimous decision, the most likely route for this would be individual European countries along with the global south. I think getting petitions going in individual European countries to promote this cause is a good step forward. Right now, I think just more awareness is needed toward this.
Please listen to this 24-hour update of what's happening in Gaza. It's the 25th of December. It's Christmas Day. But Bethlehem, where Jesus was born, has cancelled Christmas. They are not celebrating Christmas, and instead it's the 79th day of being bombed. 79 days of this genocide. Since the 7th of October, more than 21 Palestinians have died. Can you even imagine that number of people? Because I can't. In the last 24 hours alone, 250 people were killed, including children, and 500 injured, just in the last 24 hours. Netanyahu has said that the war in Gaza is far from over after there were speculations that his government might halt the genocide. He's made it loud and clear that they are not going to do that. The Palestinian Red Cross say that they endure violations on a daily basis while trying to evacuate displaced and wounded Palestinians. Not only that, but 8 members of PRCS have actually been detained, and they don't even know the whereabouts of the staff members that have been detained. Meanwhile, another video that has been circulating shows hundreds of detained Palestinian men naked in a stadium. You can see in the video that part of the stadium has been bulldozed to create a detention camp. And essentially, these men, they die execution style at the hands of the Israeli army. They're taken from the refugee camps, these displaced Palestinians, and killed. Internationally, since the 7th of October, the US has sent 230 cargo planes and 20 ships full of weapons. This genocide is just as much being done by the US as it is by Israel. And pro-Palestinian and activist Sean King has had his Instagram deleted. Sean King has been highlighting what's happening in Palestine and showing some of the absolute awful, horrific scenes that no one else is showing that's happening on the ground in Palestine right now. With New Year approaching, my only hope is that in my lifetime I get to see a free Palestine.
While the media is looking away, everyone's having a grand old time. It is Christmas Eve. You're enjoying the meals, the laughter, the gifts. This is what's happening. The birthplace of this baby that the world is celebrating. They cancel Christmas. But yet still globally, it's being celebrated. And this is being ignored. Joe Biden, the Catholic, is celebrating Christmas while this is happening. And this is done by the self-proclaimed most moral force.
You know that right now, a massacre just happened in Jabalia refugee camp and in El Maghazi refugee camp. El Maghazi refugee camp was hit with a very strong Israeli airstrike, and with one single airstrike, 50 people got unalived from one single airstrike. That is happening right now. Right now in Gaza, the genocide is still continuing. People are getting unalived by dozens. The hospitals are not able to accommodate all these people. Not enough aid, not enough doctors. The aid is coming in from the south and it's not reaching the north. It's not reaching the areas that are actually getting hit really hard. The north of Gaza is 10 times worse. What are you hearing? There is no media coverage there. There are massacres happening. Keep talking about Palestine.
3 Signs Israelis Losing Part 29. I know Christmas is an important day for you, Netanyahu. As someone who believes in made-up lists and has delusional wishes such as taking control of the border in Egypt. Hello, come back to planet Earth. Egypt has a bigger army than you. They're actually trained and not in TikTok dances. But it's okay if you believe in Santa. After all, one of your wishes came true. Those hostages that you begged to meet. Here they are, talking. Here's another gift you might like. You and Sleepy Joe are gonna get to spend some alone time because the Netherlands, Norway and Denmark join France and Italy in abandoning Operation Prosperity. Some fun activities that you and Sleepy Joe can do. Plan your strategy for your upcoming trial in the ICC. Also watch some Christmas celebrations. In New York, they made these cute little drawings for you. Maybe you want to read some news. Article in The Guardian yesterday explaining in details how you lost the war. So happy Christmas!
My previous video I talk about how stadiums are being bulldozed as hundreds of Palestinian men are stripped to their underwear, handcuffed in the cold, and some executed. Videos of this are circulating on social media because an Israeli photographer so kindly edited this for us. There are also claims on social media that babies, elderly, and women are there as well. I'm waiting on Al Jazeera to set out a report of what kind of population are at the stadium too.
Okay, watch this video I'm about to show you. It was posted on Twitter an hour ago by the handle @gazanews. The music that you're gonna hear in the video was added by the Israeli soldier who posted this video. They're the one who shared this video. Watch this video.
don't mind me. I was just bawling my eyes out because if you follow Ismail Jude on Instagram, then you might have seen one of his most recent posts where they were pulling a body out from beneath the rubble and his head was flattened. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would see such a thing. And then I have to remind myself, of course, that no matter how bad we think it is, no matter how much we think we've seen, they're probably seeing far worse and just not sharing it with the internet. It's now day 79 and probably the worst they've ever been attacked. With all that being said, it's very crucial that we get louder than we've ever been, and there's going to be a protest in DC on January 13th, and if you can, I urge you to please try and make it out. The last protest was the biggest that DC has ever seen for Palestinians, and we need this one to be far bigger. So mark your calendars, and I hope I get to see a lot of you there. While I don't celebrate Christmas, I'd like to wish every Christian around the world a Merry Christmas, even though I know this year doesn't feel the same. The photo behind me is the city of Bethlehem, which I'm sure you know is Jesus's birthplace, but this year it doesn't quite look the same. Because for the first time in history, Christmas has been canceled in Bethlehem to stand in solidarity with what's happening to Palestinians in Gaza. While Palestinians in the West Bank are trying to show their support and love for Palestinians in Gaza, for some reason the Israeli military thought it would be a good idea to tweet, on behalf of the IDF, we wish all those who celebrate in Israel and around the world a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It almost feels sick and twisted, to which Montez replied saying, what about the Christians you killed in Gaza? Of course, he also included a photo of the Palestinian Christians that were killed by an Israeli airstrike inside of one of the oldest churches in the entire world. One can't forget that they also shot and killed a mother and daughter who were taking shelter inside of a church in Gaza. So while many Palestinian Christians are mourning or in hiding or are starving, lost their homes, and of course the city of Bethlehem is not celebrating, yeah, the IDF would like to wish all Christians around the world a Merry Christmas.
What bloody Christmas is anyone celebrating? As you get ready for your Christmas Eve dinner and as you get ready for your celebrations right now, Israel hit more than 50 airstrikes in the central area of Gaza between Nusayrat Breish camp and Al-Maghazi camp. More than 50 airstrikes and more than 70 people have been killed in Al-Maghazi refugee camp on its own. What bloody Christmas are people celebrating? What bloody Christmas is anyone celebrating right now? What festivals is the world going to? It's an unmerry Christmas, it's an unholy land, it's a bloody Christmas, and it's a bloody world that we live in.
On in with their bulldozers again, this time to run over pregnant women.
Every time I see one of these catastrophic atrocities that defy comprehension, like that Israel does routinely to the Palestinians, and every time I see them being reported, I think to myself, maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the time that international law will apply. Maybe this is the one that will finally make humanitarian organizations do more than just talk. Maybe this time, this massacre, this attack, this slaughter, maybe this one will be too publicly heinous, finally, for Western powers to back. And I think this is something a lot of Westerners can relate to. Because even if we might know intellectually that rules-based international order is nothing more than a myth, it's still programmed into us to genuinely believe that these institutions are there to safeguard humanity when they're not. And the atrocities keep bleeding together. The bombing of schools, hospitals, mosques, and churches, the shooting of journalists and teachers and professors, the rounding up of innocent civilian men, the summary executions, and now the bulldozing of pregnant women in labor. And the world is watching as humanitarian rule-based world order completely falls apart due to one dying empire's settler colony. I think the whole rules-based international order thing shocks us into inaction. We keep thinking that we can appeal to these systems that purport to be for the preservation of humanity, but are actually just for the preservation of the same exploitative systems that have kept neo-imperialism and neo-colonialism running for so long now. Ultimately, all of that hogwash about non-violence and the proper way to do things and rules-based international order was just that, hogwash. Because the language that these fucking cretins actually speak has always been violence. And that is that same Fanonian violence that they're going to see reflected back at them.
I really thought the Ben Gurion Canal was a conspiracy or something that was just undoable, because it's really, really crazy. But this line that has been made cutting through Gaza is nothing like I've ever seen before. And I constantly remote sense satellites. This is actually something that I do. I analyze satellite images, and I'm constantly looking at how urban fabrics are changing and transforming. This was Gaza in September. And this is Gaza right now. This was created after Israel invaded the Gaza Strip. I have no idea what this is. September, December. Is this the Ben Gurion Canal? Is this the preparations for it? I have no idea. But I'm scared to the core of my bones. And I haven't seen anyone else produce these images. I haven't seen anyone analyze this. No newspaper outlet, no environmentalists, no scientists, no remote censoring analysts have done this. No one has produced these images. Gaza in September, Gaza now. I have no idea what to do with this information, and I'm internally freaking out.
Thinking about enlisting in the IDF? Let me walk you through the steps.
It's so cool how you can just advertise for mercenaries on TikTok now, and that doesn't violate any sort of community guidelines whatsoever. That's great.
A pregnant woman in labor was walking towards a hospital to give birth while waving a white flag. According to an eyewitness account of a journalist on the ground, she was shot by Israeli Nazi forces and then they bulldozed over her body. The only difference between now and before is that the world is finally watching their crimes, and we won't let them get away with it.
What you're seeing behind me is a wish list that an 11-year-old Palestinian girl named Sila wrote before her family house was targeted last night in Al-Maghazi refugee camp on Christmas Eve by an Israeli airstrike. The name Sila means to return to the homeland after years of displacement. I'm going to translate and read you these wishes just to show you how simple the wishes of the kids in Gaza are. The headline is, My Plans After the War. 1. 30 days of food takeout delivery. 2. Watch TV and stay late and eat whatever I want. 3. Go out and go wherever I want. 4. Speak to my dad for hours. 5. Buy so much clothes. Travel and see my dad. From the context of the wishes, I think her dad is living in Switzerland. 7. Convince my dad to travel to my Uncle Mustafa and Uncle Muhammad. 8. Leave Gaza and go to Switzerland. And she ends it with, Inshallah, my plans will come true. Her belongings were found by the journalist Hani Abu Risks over the rubble of her family house. Also, the journalist noor.harazeen found her personal diary. Sila's diary is even more heartbreaking than her wish list, and I'm going to translate it for you. Sila says, Today is September 23rd, December 2023. I woke up in the morning at 7:30 a.m. I cleaned my bed and we didn't have breakfast. I played with the kids and we made a funny play. The participants of this play is Hala, Leen, Sila, and Hussein. And now she describes the content of the play. Sila says, we had lunch of pizza, manaish, and pastry, and they were delicious. And here I am playing with Wad, Jinan, and asking them questions, and they are answering them. And just to show you how intelligent Sila was, she was updated with the news. Sila says, the Zionists declared to Egypt that they are not responsible over the lives of the Egyptian soldiers over the borders. And they will control the borders, and they are planning to displace us to Sinai. The kids who participated in this play is Sila, 11-year-old, Hala, 8-year-old, Leen, 6-year-old, and Hussein, who was 5 years old. And all of these kids were found under the rubble dead at the end of the video. This was just one example out of the 8,000 kids who were killed by Israel since October 7. All of these kids had dreams. All of these kids had future. And Israel had the saying to end their dreams. Don't forget about Celia and her friends and make sure to remember them. May Allah grant their family patience and alleviate their pain. May Allah liberate the fate of the Palestinian people.
So the Washington Post has confirmed what everyone already knew, which is that there was no proof of a Hamas command center under Al-Shifa Hospital. The thing is, even though everybody already knew, they used the fact that Hamas was supposedly under Al-Shifa as pretext to bomb a hospital, which of course is a violation of the Geneva Conventions, the rules of engagement, international law, basic human decency, and they got away with it, which meant, of course, they just went on to keep bombing hospitals over and over and over again. And they don't even make up excuses as to why anymore. They just do it. When Biden was asked about what details or evidence there was to support that there was a Hamas command center under Al-Shifa, he said, "No, I can't tell you. I won't tell you." And then he was asked, "Do you feel absolutely confident based on what you know?" And he cut this person off and said, "Yes." And that is the truth, they asked. And he said, "Yes." Knowing, of course, that it was a lie. And now, evidently, the Biden administration is working behind the scenes to try and stop Switzerland from calling a conference to address whether or not Israel has violated the Geneva Conventions. Which, in my opinion, is implicitly admitting you believe that Israel violated the Geneva Conventions. So, that's where we're at.
Have you guys seen this Amsterdam protest? When I say that it is so creative and just genius, watch it with me.
Dear shoppers, welcome to Bijenkorf. This Christmas season, we invite you to stop shopping while the bombs are dropping. Over 20,000 people in Gaza were killed this warm winter season, funded by your tax money. When you buy brands such as L'Oreal, Chanel and Dior, you make sure Israel can continue its genocide on Palestinians. While you have been searching for the perfect gift, Israel has killed 6 children every hour. 6 children. Every hour. In the last 2.5 months, 8,000 children have been killed. Show your solidarity with the oppressed people of Palestine. Educate yourself on the genocide. Speak out to your friends about the occupation. Christmas is cancelled. Drop your shopping bags and boycott the brands that power Israeli genocide on Palestinians. Boycott L'Oreal. Boycott Dior. Boycott Chanel. Boycott Puma. From the pleasure to the sea, Palestine will be free.
I love protests that disrupt the status quo and are inherently peaceful like that, because people get so angry about those ones in particular the most. Even though if we were to go out and protest the way that the French do, you know that they would be saying how we need to do peaceful, peaceful, peaceful. That is peaceful. Yet it's disrupting the status quo. We need more of that.
It's Christmas Day, and in the past 24 hours, they've killed over 250 Palestinians and wounded over 500. The confirmed death toll now stands at over 20,600 people. The confirmed wounded toll is over 50,000 people. The numbers are absolutely so much higher. You can tell they're using Christmas as a distraction. You can tell they're trying to. 2 days ago, they killed 201 Palestinians. Yesterday, they killed 160 Palestinians. Today, it's 250. Over in the past 24 hours, 250 Palestinians have been killed. And not to mention, they're not only dying from Israel's hands, they're dying from starvation. They're dying from diseases. Don't look away from the Gaza Strip. Don't look away from the West Bank. Literally, hours ago, they arrested dozens of people, probably for no fucking reason per usual. Whatever, fuck Israel, free Palestine, and happy fucking holidays.
This is a picture I took in Bethlehem the last time I visited, and I'm not sure if people recognize as they enter the holiday season and as they set up their nativity scenes that this is the same city of Bethlehem that Jesus walked in and where Christianity started. This is the Palestinian city of Bethlehem. I feel like this picture perfectly showcases what occupation looks like. On one side, you have the confiscated Palestinian olive trees that have become the created state of Israel, and on this side, you have the Palestinian refugee camp, the Al-Aida refugee camp in Bethlehem that hosts displaced Palestinians from all across historic Palestine. This wall that surrounds the city of Bethlehem is twice the height of the Berlin Wall and 4 times as long. And the wall was created to annex or steal Palestinian land, as you can see by the beautiful olive trees that no longer can be accessed by the Palestinian farmers. And were Jesus to walk today, this is the city he would be allowed to enter, the side he would be allowed to walk in. He would walk in a city surrounded by walls, surrounded by Israeli watchtowers with snipers pointing guns. He would be forced to go through checkpoints, as checkpoints surround this city and limit the freedom of movement that Palestinians have. And would anybody have a very Merry Christmas, or any holiday of that matter, under occupation? As you celebrate the holiday season, remember, this is the city of Jesus. And if he's the reason for this season, why are we ignoring what's happening to Palestinians?
Everyone's favorite Palestinian journalist, Motez, was, I think, targeted last night. And here's why I think that is. So he first posted this saying the Israeli occupation started to bomb El Burj refugee camp in order to displace people, and this was live footage from the roof of his house. Then he posted how a quadcopter was in the very front of his house, like in front of his front door. And then he posted, you can hear the sound of its fans, and we are terrified, it's loaded. He said he was too scared to actually try and film it in the darkness because he was scared they were going to try and throw something over his head. And as we see, Motez has 17.5 million followers on Instagram. And again, he is a Palestinian from Gaza on the ground documenting the atrocities. And for comparison, the IDF page has 1.3 million followers. And the occupational racist apartheid state has 805,000 followers. And Israeli officials have even accused Palestinian journalists in Gaza of knowing about October 7th and accusing them of working with Hamas or being a part of Hamas. Over 100 Palestinian journalists have been killed, and the numbers are growing every single day. Israeli Defense Minister genocidal Benny Gantz said if there were journalists who knew about the massacre who remained silent and took pictures while children were being massacred, they are no different from the terrorists and their punishment is sharp. From Israel's side, there's already been justification for the murder of journalists. And some of the journalists that the world is paying attention to the most is Motez and Bissan. Both of them have been in locations where airstrikes have happened. They are being targeted. And of course, all of Gaza is being targeted, so all Gazans are being targeted. But with Palestinian journalists, they are showing the world what is happening in Gaza. Keep your eyes on Palestine.
So breaking news, as of an hour ago, the world's largest shipping company, Maersk, announced that it will resume shipments through the Red Sea. However, the Houthis announced that all ships can move freely except those with Israeli connections or headed towards Israel. But I was curious how much this was costing these companies because they moved pretty fast. So apparently 158 vessels carrying approximately $105 billion in ocean freight was being diverted away from the Red Sea once this all started. It was costing between $1,900 and $2,400 to ship a container from Asia to Europe. Once this started, the logistics managers were being quoted $10,000 per container. Okay, so I do want to preface that if this had gone on much longer, these increases in shipping container prices would have been passed on to the everyday consumer, which wouldn't have been great. But now that it's just limited to the occupier state, it will impact their economy and not the everyday consumer across the world, which is kind of the point of these global boycotts and these global initiatives. So if you take a look at how apartheid South Africa came down, it was through targeted means. And by the way, that was started primarily through 2 Black employees at Polaroid
the camera company. I can do a story time about that. And before you guys come for me in the comments, I am fully aware that the current tactics being deployed are not the same tactics that were being used to dismantle apartheid South Africa. Instead, there were mass movements by civil society organizations and state-sanctioned initiatives to economically sanction apartheid South Africa at the time by imposing large economic tariffs, taxes, and sanctions. I'm fully aware that that was the case. And so that just means we have to do a better job of organizing.
While the entire world is celebrating the holidays, it is now the 80th day of the genocide in Gaza. 80 days of bloodshed, 80 days of bombing, of murder, of displacement, of hunger, of starvation, of being deprived of every basic human necessity. Last night, when you all began celebrating the holidays, 3 refugee camps in the middle of the Gaza Strip were targeted. And let me add, they told the people in the west of Khan Yunis to evacuate, and to go to where? To Rafah. After displacing nearly the entire population of Gaza, you're gonna shove them all in Rafah, as if there's enough space and enough resources? Where do you expect these people to go? But yeah, enjoy the food on your table, the roof over your head, and the amount of privilege that you have, and turn a blind eye to the murder and genocide of the Palestinians.
Christmas Day, and extremely concerning reports are coming out of Gaza where the Israeli occupation forces are using a food bait because they know that the population of Gaza is starving. So what they're doing is they're leaving out bags of flour as a honeypot trap so that the starving population of Gaza who go to get the bread, the sack of flour, they're being sniped by the Israeli occupation forces. There was also this report that came out of the UN that said that 4 out of the 5 starving people in the world right now are all from Gaza, which only encompasses a 2.5 million people population. This also comes on the heels of a fresh round of raids being conducted in the birthplace of Jesus, Bethlehem, on Christmas Day, and not to even talk about the constant bombardment and unaliving of Palestinians in Gaza. That's just, happening. It happened yesterday, it happened today. And this is just a day after the leader of the free world, Joe Biden, went out of his way to let people know that there will be no ceasefire. So to the people of Gaza, the children of Gaza, more hellfire and bombs are coming your way, courtesy of the American taxpayer and signed off by Joe Biden.
This is little Maria. She was 5 years old when she was by the occupation, and she was in her first year of school. She loved preschool so much, and she would talk about how she wants to be a teacher when she grows up. And her mother wrote about her saying, "Is it possible that I'm never going to hear your sweet voice again telling me, can you make my hair like this? Can you make my hair like that?" And saying, "Mama, I love you so much," and "Mama, I miss you so much." This is Misk. She was a year and a half. She knew how to count in English and in Arabic up to the number 10. And her mother, who was in her final month of pregnancy. Misk and her mother joined every single one of their relatives who were. All of them went back to God. All of them went back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Her uncles, her aunts, her cousins, everyone, including her little brother or sister with their mother. This is Rawan and her son Amir. She studied medical analysis and she wanted to get her master's degree in genetics. She loved reading. She was an admirer of the Barcelona football club. And she was taken alongside her children back to Allah. These are just a few stories out of almost 20,000. 20,000. They are not numbers.
As you come together with people for whatever year-end, year-beginning gatherings that you might be having, remember that genocide is neither polarizing nor is it a controversial conversation. Just like naming that someone is a white person and they benefit from white supremacy is not controversial. Just like being disabled is neither delicate nor a controversial subject. Neither is the fact that cis people benefit from cis privilege, whether or not you accept the term cis or not. Neither is the fact that all billionaires became that way through unethical means. Not controversial. Fact. Talking about the fact that there are multiple genocides happening simultaneously around the world. It is not polarizing to talk about that. It's not controversial, it's not radical, it's not delicate. It's not about we agree to disagree when it comes to facts. But those steeped in white, cishet, colonial dominant culture will gaslight you into thinking that it's a matter of opinion. No, oppression is a fact that exists, and oppressors are oppressing the oppressed. Those are facts. And you know what? Another fact that's happening right now is taking down empire. Free all oppressed people and liberation for all. Fact, not opinion.
One of my mutuals just sent me a video of an elderly Palestinian man trying to defend an olive tree that he had raised and cared for from IOF soldiers who were, of course, cutting it down. And my mutual gave the sentiment of like, I know that there are worse things going on, but this just pains me so much to see. So, you know, I'm repeating myself here now to them, but the way that people invest in land, in keeping land healthy so that it can produce food for generations, the way that people care for land over years and years, that commitment is the way that they show people love, the way they show the generations after them love and care far beyond their own lifetime. It's a way for people to give love and care after their own death. So it's not just land and it's not just trees. It's the erasure of so many years of care labor from past generations. Watching the destruction of the land and trees feels like a part of genocide because it is.
I'm going to be honest here, this verbiage sounds awfully familiar. I am happy that the Israeli public understands that the plan I initiated for the voluntary migration of residents of the Gaza Strip is the most correct and humane solution to the problem. I'll tell you what I think of this plan. This baloney is haram. We like all things halal over here. Free Palestine. The house of cards is falling. Israeli soldiers are starting to complain and post more videos like this depicting the harsh conditions of the Gaza Strip. They believe their government has abandoned them. Free Palestine.
This Christmas, don't forget to remind your friends, family, loved ones that if Jesus, who's Palestinian, was supposed to be around today, he wouldn't have even made it to life. Because Mary, on her way to the hospital to give birth to him, would have been bulldozed and shot by Israel. And if you don't want to because you think that's going to be a buzzkill to your holidays, then I wish you all the worst on Team Genocide. While this and countless other atrocities aren't happening to you and your people. And just for the record, this isn't a message of vengeance. I don't have time for that. Our vengeance will be our liberation. It'll be the last thing on my mind. This is a righteous, full-throated fuck you.
Language is the bridge between thought and action. And since Israel, the United States, and all of the imperial accomplices of actual terror on this planet have been spending for decades so much money on propaganda campaigns with the explicit goal of dehumanizing Palestinians to justify the ethnic cleansing and genocide of our people, we should never underestimate the power of our incredibly vital responsibility to ensure that we are centering and uplifting Palestinians and the Palestinian liberation narrative. Ideological warfare is literally how any atrocity even happens at all. So yes, absolutely a culmination of all of the voices of decades past and today can and will influence what actually happens. We are entering a period while our people are being genocided where they are planning for a day after that still hurts the Palestinian people. And therefore, political education is going to be really important. So make sure you are continuing to follow a variety of Palestinian accounts and centering our liberation narrative. Reading Palestinian books, watching Palestinian movies, whatever mode of information that you prefer to consume, and that you are disseminating that within your communities with the influence that you have, even if you think it's just one other person. Everything matters. Stand in unwavering solidarity with the Palestinian people as well as our resistance efforts. This is a just cause, and the only solution is our full liberation from colonial Zionism.
Don't forget that it's not just about free Palestine, but the Palestine that's freeing us along the way.